Hello there.
He's no good to me dead.
We're fine. We're all fine here now. How are you?
I think you'll fill in nicely.
This is where the fun begins.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for news, reviews, and interviews from your favorite galaxy far, far away. My name is Pat, don't call me Padawan, Collins, and here is my co-host, the mayor of Alderaan himself.
Also known as Andy Hanlon.
Well, Andy, we made it, despite, a couple technical issues on the first day.
What were those technical errors, Pat?
Well, it's complicated, and I don't know if really the
Which way's the mic facing?
mic was backwards.
Yo, weak.
The mic was backwards. I was so excited that I got a pop filter over the Christmas break. I got a new boom arm for my microphone over the Christmas break. Was in such a rush to install it, get it put in, get it ready to go, and start this amazing podcasting journey that we're going. Fuck you! Shut up!
Your arrogance blinds you, Master Yoda.
Oh, fuck. That's a double nerd right there. Oh my god. Whoops-a-daisy. All right, but no, we're here. The mic's facing the right way. I feel good to go.
Yep, I had a great time last week, so let's just get into it. I think it's important to know, I think we should just review a lot of stuff needed tweaking last week.
Of course.
Perhaps a little show structure, which we kind of just talked about.
Yep.
Or even a little nasty boy safe word for any potential spoilers.
Ooh, a nasty boy safe word. Ooh, okay. 50 Shades of Hoth? I don't know. What's a kinky? I don't know. It makes me...
I don't know. A little 50 Shades of Mustafar.
Ooh, okay. A safe word. Okay, so this safe word would be just in case there's anything like major spoilery.
Yeah, so I think it's...
Now, what's the cutoff? What's the cutoff? Like, how many movies should we just assume everyone has seen the movies, the theatrical releases?
I mean, I think at the very least, if anyone's listening to this podcast, they had to have at least seen the movies. Otherwise, why are they listening to us talk? But yeah, I would say we need some sort of safe word for anything that we talk about, just in case there's someone that hasn't kept themselves current.
Okay, I just had a thought, but then I kind of checked myself. I was thinking Grogu, but that's too relevant. That's too new. It's too fresh. It's a name that we're going to hear more of in the years to come. He's kind of carrying a lot of the flag of the next era of Star Wars.
Something that like people don't give a shit about, like Boss Ness. The Gungan.
Say Gungan. No,
or
but even
Sebulba.
still...
And we can say it in Sebulba's
Sebulba.
language.
Voodoo.
Yeah.
Voodoo.
Or Watto.
Oh, Watto. Okay, I like Watto. Okay, everyone who's listening right now. Watto
Watto is our safe word for tonight.
Watto is our safe word for tonight, if not for all episodes going forward. Watto, the nasty boy, junk dealer himself, will be our safe word.
Very frugal junk dealer.
Yeah, I think Watto would probably kill the mood for me in any kind of situation that would require a safe word. I think that would cut it.
The best was his fedora in. Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in another season. But when Anakin goes back to see him in Attack of the Clones, that was fantastic.
That's a Watto right there, letting us know what his red carpet apparel was. A hubcap of a
Nubian.
Annie, little Annie. Maybe you could help me with some friends who owe me some money.
Republic credits. Those are the good no here.
Oh, Watto, you filthy old man. But anyways, no, I like that. Okay, so check. We've got our nasty boy safe word. Now, show structure. You're right. We need a little bit more. People like to predict stuff. They like the expectation of stuff. And I think maybe that's why a lot of The Last Jedi and maybe some of the sequels weren't so well received, because it wasn't necessarily what the fans were expecting. And the prequels were kind of like that too, because they differed from the original trilogy quite a bit. And the prequels at their time got a little bit of pushback because of that difference. So and we've seen from the success of The Mandalorian, having the characters that people know and love. So the expectation that, we're fed a little bit more of that extra, that little bit of that sizzle sauce, and that predictable video game-esque episodic show structure that is predictable in a lot of ways, but still very gratifying and satisfying to sit through and see these beloved characters work through. So I think we need something like that. Have like an episodic style format to our podcast episodes.
Yep, that sounds good to me.
Okay, so tell me what you think about this. What do you think of? Okay, we start with, if not a little bit of fun, casual banter, as we've been sharing today. We then get into the news and updates from previous weeks, things that are new, relevant, very kind of like, whoa, this just in across the news desk. Good morning, Alderaan. That way we can then get the excitement out of our chest. Well, not that we're not excited for the other stuff too, but the new, fresh, shiny stuff can be reviewed and combed through. Yeah, so the first part of the episode will be along that line of news, reviews, news, flashy news.
Yep.
Things that are like brand new,
anything
things
current.
that might be of note, anything current, or anything that's been announced that's, something to look forward to. And then we get into some of the review style, where we discuss anything in the past, anything that's already come out and happened, or things that we can really kind of have a little bit of a discussion on. So, for instance, today we're just going to talk about the original trilogy. Nothing too scary, just kind of a soft entry into this world we're all developing together. Future episodes may include reviews of the prequels, reviews of individual movies, review of books in general, review of video games and their contribution. And there'll be smatterings of some facts sprinkled in there, but I think it's mostly going to be like the emotional side of it, how it made us felt, what we experienced, not so much of like the numbers game, but more of like the heart and soul within it as well.
I like it, Pat. I think we're gonna have a good thing going here.
I love it as well. And fortunately, we didn't just make this up for the sake of casual banter. No, we are prepared. Prepared indeed. We've made some notes. So without further ado, what do you think? Should we get into it?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right, sweet. So this past week, the High Republic era of expanded universe has arrived.
Very excited. Very, very excited.
High stakes.
What do you mean?
Well, it's in the sense that they have a lot, I think, riding on this. There are dozens, what seems like dozens of authors who have proven their mettle in the Star Wars universe, mostly in the kind of Disney era of the books and comics that have come out. But nonetheless, there are still some that are, veterans from before the dark times, before the Disney. And this is a series. So you know what? I'll just read the Star Wars news release about this. So this came out on January 5th. Star Wars, The High Republic is here. The first books in the Multimedia Initiative arrive today. The Golden Age of Jedi is upon us. Today we take our first steps into the larger world of Star Wars, The High Republic, with the first books in the Multimedia Initiative set about 200 years before Star Wars, The Phantom Menace. So I'll pause right there for a minute. This is a new era. It's old, but it's a new era for Star Wars. Like there's really no major callbacks, no tiebacks. This happens, as it says, like the High Republic, so the height of the Jedi Order. Obviously, our homeboy Yoda's going to be there. He's about 900 years old or so, 850 years old in when we first meet him in the Phantom Menace. So that Yoda's going to be there, albeit younger, perhaps more spry and agile. But I can't really think of, unless there's members of like the Jedi Order or any of the Masters who are over 200 years old. There's no one there aside from Yoda. So this is a new slate as far as Star Wars media goes.
Well, I'm also wondering, like, okay, so Yoda for sure, but like we actually don't know. I mean, I've read some theories out there, but like we actually don't know how fast the Yoda, Grogu, Yaddle Yaddle,
Right, Yaddle. Yeah.
species age.
It's a
So how old will Yoda be in it? Like, will he be like Grogu style? Probably a little bit older than Grogu.
No, it's 200 years before Phantom Menace. So Yoda's going to be like
right.
600 years old or so.
That's right. Because yeah.
He's going to be at least a teenager. But
yeah. So I mean, we'll see some badass Yoda, but I think the cool thing with Yoda is we'll probably get to see him be the apprentice, perhaps, in some capacity.
Maybe he's not the Grand Master. Interesting.
Yeah, he might be on the Council. He could be a Jedi Master, but he may not be the Grand Master.
Mm-hmm.
So we may get some glimpse into who actually trained Yoda.
Yep.
I also think in this, there's actually something I read earlier today about that there's potential for the leads of these to be female. It's a female lead.
Yes.
Instead of a male lead, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Considering now Rey is sort of like the female lead of the Jedi, is in the sequels, but to kind of go back to like the female lead being way before Phantom Menace would be pretty cool.
Amazing. Yeah.
But then
I know.
But
sorry, go ahead.
But then I also think we're going to see some Darth Plagueis, for sure.
Ooh, good call. Good call. Maybe like even his beginning or that. Yeah, maybe some like behind the scenes Sith action.
How cool. How cool, because we actually don't know anything about Darth Plagueis other than the tale that Palpatine says to Anakin in Revenge of the Sith. The tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise. How cool would it be if Plagueis was actually the Grand Master of the Jedi Council? Training.
And then went dark.
Yeah, or something happened. Like, he doesn't have to be the Grand Master, but like typical like Star Wars sort of theme of they're good and then they go bad type of thing. But
Yep.
If he actually trained Yoda,
if there was some kind of like
some sort of connection. Yeah. But I think seeing some young Yoda and some Plagueis and maybe a young, super young Palpatine would be.
He
cool.
wouldn't be over 200 years old though. I don't think it'd be cool. Well, maybe towards the end of it. I don't know. Again, it's a long era. It's a lot. They got a lot of ground to cover. So
maybe
we won't live to see the last Star Wars movie as far as
I know
how much media this media empire is going to pull out. But going back to like the female lead, I looked into some of the authors, and this one Justina Ireland, who is the author of A Test of Courage in this High Republic series. I think it's the second book, perhaps. And I know she's quite outspoken in the the author realm about just how the industry is dominated by old rich white men, and just calls people out constantly on that fact. So it's going to be very. She had some interesting sounding books that I'd not heard of before. Forgive me, I don't know the name of them right now, but it's essentially a reworking of history where during the Civil War times, the dead started to rise, and it was like a zombie apocalypse kind of story in Civil War era.
Okay.
That was very very female dominated in the story as well, from the sounds of it in the quick little blurb that I read there. So Justina Ireland, definitely go check that out. That sounds pretty neat. But anyways, I'll cool. finish the press release here as well. Set about 200 years before the Phantom Menace. It is a time of peace and prosperity in the galaxy far, far away. The Republic is thriving and the Jedi Order is at its zenith, with individual Force wielders and their students exploring the galactic frontier and keeping the peace. But this time is not without its conflicts. And then it shows a couple of the covers coming through there. The story begins with The Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule, A Test of Courage by Justina Ireland, and The Great Jedi Rescue by Cavan Scott. All three books offer a variety of new characters and perspectives, with tales crafted for fans of all ages. So, again, taking a break here, this is sounding like it's going to be pretty all-encompassing, probably not an overly difficult read, probably some pretty... And, testing the waters a little bit to see what the reception of the fans is going to be like. So, they're probably going to try to appeal to as massive a market as possible, maybe even leaning towards, like, the young adult, if not mid-20s, early 20s kind of demographic, I guess you could say. Just, again, with people with the most disposable money to be able to, again, purchase the massive amount of content that it sounds like they're going to start spilling out. They got the novels and the comics and magazines and all sorts of stuff coming out with this.
Mhm.
So they're really swinging for it. But
I'm very excited, and as for someone who I loved the planet Coruscant from the prequels,
yes,
and it's only ever really been referenced one other time, and that was in Mandalorian by Ahsoka, Rosario Dawson.
Yep.
When she said that Grogu was trained for the temple in Coruscant. So I would love to see some good old Rise of the Republic on Coruscant. It's got to entail Coruscant. It has to.
For sure. Yeah, well, the height of the Jedi, and that's where everything's based.
And that's where the Republic is, the Senate and everything else, right?
Yep. So, yeah, good old Coruscant is going to be revisited. So yeah, that's really about it as far as that goes. It's the next phase of it. I think 3 books are out now. Then on February 2nd, 2021, we continue our journey with Into the Dark, a novel by Claudia Gray. Again, a very good author of Star Wars novels. She's written a few, and they are dynamite. I think she wrote Phasma, I believe, and I think she wrote Princess Leia as well.
Nice.
Or Leia, or Princess of Alderaan, or something. One of those.
Oh yes, I've seen that one. I've seen that one. Yeah,
it's about a young Leia. Yeah, it was really, really good. And it will follow the first comic run, which is Star Wars: The High Republic Adventures, written by Daniel Jose Older and illustrated by Harvey Tolibel. Daniel Jose Older was really good too. He wrote the prequel book to, or was it sequel? Might have been the sequel book to Solo. It was kind of like
a nice
dual kind of story from the point of view of Lando was a point of view from Han. So it was a fun book, but definitely go check that out. I know I will eventually once I'm done reading the current Star Wars book that I'm reading, which we'll touch on in a little while here. But I got a little bit of sad news. Moving on to the next one, Tom Kane. If you don't recognize the name, he's the voice of Yoda in the Clone Wars series, and I think he was in Rebels as well. He suffered a stroke a few months back and was left unable to speak, read, or write. And although he's still very much himself, fortunately, he's doing well. He's, according to his daughter, he's in some great care. Although he may never do voiceovers again. And as someone who dabbles in voiceovers myself, I feel for the guy immensely and his family. So we're just sending out some good old thoughts and prayers to him, and hopefully, miracles do happen, and hopefully he can find his way back to the microphone and voice that lovable little Yoda character that we all know and love. So again, Tom Kane, we're thinking about you, and hope you're doing well in this crazy time. Moving right along here. So something that we've really, really exploded the love of Star Wars for us over the last little while is the return, of course. Okay, Watto, here comes a spoiler if you've not seen the last episode of Mandalorian. Star Wars legend Mark Hamill reacts to The Mandalorian Season 2 finale. Oh, that's the title of an article. So he's Mark Hamill, a week or two back, sent out a couple of tweets that really just banged on the heartstrings. This is Mark Hamill's tweet. Sometimes the greatest gifts are the most unexpected and something you never realized you wanted until it was given, Hamill tweeted. His tweet included the hashtag Thank You, John and Dave, which is a reference to Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, who produced the new show, The Mandalorian. It just goes to show that, like, I can't possibly imagine how gratifying that was for him, who has spent his whole life, his whole physical image is that of Luke Skywalker, right? Like, people see him when they hear his voice. Like, a lot of people don't know what a huge voice actor he is in the industry. He's done the voice of Joker in the Batman animated series, and
Joker in a lot of stuff. Did Joker in the Arkham video games? Yeah.
Oh man, so good. So he's very, very, I think he's made a good chunk of money from the voiceover realm. But
he had the best. Mark Hamill. Fun fact: he had the best cameo. Not as Mark Hamill, but he was in The Kingsman, the opening scene of The Kingsman.
Oh, was he?
Do you remember that? I think it was The Kingsman.
I haven't seen The Kingsman. I was just talking about this yesterday or 2 days ago with my brother.
Okay. We're going to have like a side podcast of like things you need to see. Anyway, keep going.
Yes, I'm sorry. It's on my list. It's on my list, I promise. I'm too busy watching and reading Star Wars. Like, it was Hamill doing the voice. I don't think it was even his physical, like, it was just kind of his likeness and his voice that they did. But, that's still such a huge representation of to the character he built. Luke Skywalker got his time in the sun, whipping that lightsaber around in a way that, we never saw in the Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back, or to a very, very lesser extent in New Hope, when he's just learning to wield the dang thing.
And we should have had it in The Last Jedi. I never got it, but
we should have had it in The Last Jedi. Never got it. He didn't even swing that thing when Kylo came at him. So it missed opportunity.
He fought with a stick. Stick.
Give Luke Skywalker a fucking stick.
Rey had his lightsaber. His daddy's lightsaber. And he fought with a fucking stick. Ryan Johnson.
We were there with you.
Shame. I wish I have a bell upstairs. I should have brought the bell down. I actually have a bell, like those old school bells, like they ring in Game of Thrones. Shame. Shame.
I know, like, I try to appreciate The Last Jedi as like a great attempt at trying something new, and it was definitely a twist. It was, it was no Sixth Sense or even Empire Strikes Back as far as twists go, but just like, come on, it's Luke.
It was such a ripoff.
When Luke saw that, or when Mark Hamill saw that finally, and the fact that people kept it a secret for over a year, that's amazing. That is so cool. So like, that must have just been like, he must have just been like, 2020 is not so bad because I know what's coming. It's Luke. It's Luke. So I think he would probably have that same reaction where he's probably just welling up, going like, "It's Luke. It's the real Luke." So it was, it was brief, but it was very, very satisfying. And I think Mark Hamill got his, he probably had a moment with that. I'm sure.
Oh,
very
for sure.
good to see. One more quick little behind the scenes fact before we start yakking about the original trilogy and kind of our thoughts and feelings on it. So, okay, going back to episode 3, very popular, maybe that's a very poor choice of words. Where
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger, I know. I bet you he would have been a good Anakin Skywalker. Anyways, when Anakin Skywalker storms the temple, finds all those little kids hiding in the Master's room, and the kid who says, "Master Skywalker, there's too many of them. What are we going to do?" And the kids all take a step back. Now, that kid who said that, he gave her an interview recently, and he revealed what Hayden Christensen said to make them all kind of jump back like that, all at the same time. So it was very dark, very intense. He said he remembers it being like, he didn't really know what to expect. And Hayden Christensen just said, "Boo." That's it. He just said, "Boo," really loud, and made all the kids jump back a little bit. But,
and he won an Oscar.
Yeah.
Yeah. For that scene.
Yeah. Well done. But and like, good on the kids for not breaking or cracking. Like, Hayden must have like looked the part if those kids are like that enveloped in the
we'll get into the prequel trilogy obviously another week, but like, acting aside, like I did enjoy Hayden Christensen as Vader, because as Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, the reason being is he looked the part.
Yes,
he did great. His physical acting in some ways accommodated for the lack of like voice acting and emotion that he brought. Anyway, we'll get into it another week.
Yeah, and real quick again, just to add to that, I don't think it was a case necessarily of bad acting as it was, sorry George, perhaps some bad directing. George was a notorious stodgy screenwriter, where Carrie Fisher was instrumental, and as well as George's ex-wife during the New Hope, in doing a lot of like line restructuring to make it sound a little bit more natural. Like, Harrison Ford notoriously as well pulled him aside at one point and says, "George, no one fucking talks like this. Like we're not robots. We're not going to say like,"
right.
And I think maybe perhaps it was some too literal interpretation of the script, perhaps, on Hayden's part. I mean, Obi-Wan pulled it off. Ewan McGregor is an absolute wizard as far as emotional conviction, but like, I don't know, even Samuel L. Jackson's performance was a little bit kind of like, if you look at just the lines, just the dialogue itself, some of it was a bit like, Ooh,
Yeah.
would they say that? I don't know. Like, there's just not a lot of emotion there. Not a lot.
You
of
can see a
emotion, so-
huge difference in the writing, and it might be a good segue into us reviewing the original trilogy. But
Yes.
you can see a huge difference between the way the original and sequel or prequel trilogy was written in comparison to the new ones, like the new trilogy.
Yeah.
The dialogue is far more like fluent, like it flows way better.
For sure. It's a little bit more like conversational and less like
Yeah.
proclamatic, where they just kind of like proclaim what they're saying as opposed to like having an actual organic conversation. But anyways, yes, let's talk about the original trilogy. So 1977, that's when it all started. Now, George,
Yep.
we won't get too much into the facts, like behind the scenes stuff. We'll save that maybe for another podcast. I have a couple of fun facts here that I will sprinkle throughout, but George and Steven Spielberg, well, George himself was so sure that it was going to be a flop that he actually took a trip to Hawaii for the opening weekend because he just thought it was going to be a flop and didn't care. He was just like, whatever, I put what I got into it. It was fun. Moving on to the next one. Let's go on a vacation. And on that vacation, he actually ended up writing Indiana Jones, creating Indiana Jones with Steven Spielberg.
Nice.
But it was like, he came back and he's like, whoa, so you liked it, did you? So then he had to kind of shift focus back into the Star Wars realm. And of course, Indy came out a few years later, but I think Star Wars was kind of like, okay, game on. People like this. Now, my first experience with Star Wars was, I can't even remember it. I was an infant. It's the only VHSs we had for a certain amount of time, where that I learned how to use a VCR and learned how to put Star Wars in. I wore those cassettes almost right out just because of how much I used to watch them. Yeah. Well, let's start with this. Hanlon, order of favorites of the original trilogy.
My order?
Yeah.
So my order definitely is Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars movie. I mean, it's funny because we talked about in the opening episode, like technology versus the way they were written in the older days. Like, I like the way the originals were written in terms of like plot. The dialogue, as we discussed, wasn't the greatest, but I think plot-wise it was really well. But definitely Empire Strikes Back is my favorite one. And then I would say Return of the Jedi, just because it is like the rise of Luke. And then it would be A New Hope. Like, I know A New Hope started everything.
Yeah.
And it got, like, I think it got a lot of people interested, obviously, at the time, like before my time, as my grandfather used to say. That's before my time, back when I was swinging one nut to the other. But yeah, it's definitely Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, New Hope. How about you?
Yeah. It's okay. So now Empire Strikes Back again is my favorite Star Wars movie of all time as well. Happy 40th anniversary last year, Empire. It's got everything. It's like the such a crucial moment of the hero's journey. Like, if you look at like that old kind of archetype of story structure, being the hero's journey, being the young kid who gets pulled out of obscurity, who is trained by an old wise mentor, who then has to face the world on his own, face some challenges and tribulations. But just like that kind of Greek mythology style of having Watto, the reveal that Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Oh yeah.
Like that must have been buck wild back in the day.
Can you imagine being alive for that? Like, I can't imagine anything. I can't think of anything in my lifetime cinematically that has compared to that.
Yeah,
Do
totally.
you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that has shocked me that much.
No, like I said, Sixth Sense, it probably comes close. Not that it was like an amazing movie, but just like the shock of the reveal.
Yeah.
That
yeah.
that this is what this character is all along, kind of thing, that you had no idea. You've been following this character throughout the movies, and you just had there's nothing at all that would give you any kind of hint as to, Vader being close to being Luke's father. Like, Obi-Wan says nothing aside from like, oh, he's a good friend of mine. He doesn't really.
Like, did they establish it from the beginning that he was going to be Luke's father, or like they did? I don't even know. Did they decide that later?
Well, in the script, like there was only like 4 or 5 people that knew that Luke was Vader's. The guy who played Vader physically, David Proce. What the original line said in the script was Obi-Wan was your father. And so that's what the actors were going on, except for Mark Hamill. He knew, so he could put the right emotion to it. A couple of the producers knew, I think, and James Earl Jones knew, obviously, having to deliver the line is like, I am your father. But aside from that, like it was a complete guarded secret as to Luke being Obi-Wan's father. So it's it was big.
So finish your order.
Okay,
Empire.
Sorry. Empire. I'd have to say New Hope. It hurts. Okay. It's very, very close. It's like 49.9 Jedi. 50.19 as I received the middle finger from my co-host here. But no, I'll tell you this. So my first favorite order was, like, my first favorite being like when I was a kid, up until the age of, I'd say 11 or 12. Probably 12 or 13 maybe even, when I really started to like appreciate a good story. My favorite back then was Return of the Jedi, because it had everything a kid would want. It had, it had the redemption of Han at the beginning, that kind of like heist film sort of thing, all condensed into a half-hour slot at the beginning of the movie. The heist of saving Luke's best friend. Like, that was very exciting. You got to see the lightsaber whip around. You got to see Boba Fett in a jetpack, although it was kind of an unceremonious death for a lot of people's favorite. But and George admitted, he said if he had known that Boba Fett was going to get the kind of fanfare that he later received, then he would have made his death a little bit more glorious than just kind of falling into a Sarlacc pit. But thanks to Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, we know he survived. But so Return of the Jedi was my favorite, and then A New Hope, and then a very far distant third was Empire Strikes Back. I used to love the Battle of Hoth, but I would turn it off somewhere around there. I'd never really, and like, or if I left it on, I would leave it, I would walk away and come back, and like, Luke might have been fighting a lightsaber. Oh, cool, lightsaber scene. Just in being so around it, and like, I've always known that Luke was, and by always known, I mean, like, I don't remember a time that I didn't know that Luke was Vader's son. Like, it's just, I've always known it, kind of thing. But yeah, like, I never really appreciated or enjoyed, like, as far as a little kid goes, I wasn't that interested in Luke's training session with Yoda. Yoda was funny. He was, he had his couple of moments at the beginning where he hits R2 with a stick and tries to.
Okay, so here's my thing. So in terms of the story, I really like Empire, because I like sort of how we've seen this kid. He's had this little like hero's journey at the like kind of getting this new world of galactic fighting, and then like he ends up, now he's part of this rebellion, and he gets to train with Yoda, and then eventually gets to take on what we later find out is his father, which, same as you, I kind of knew before I even watched them, because I didn't watch the originals until after episode 1, Phantom Menace, as I said last episode. But the only thing that bothers me about the movie, which baffles me, and maybe like this is sort of like a back and forth between the prequel and like the original trilogy, is why is Yoda so, like, I don't know, senile?
Senile at the beginning?
Yeah, like he just acts like such a weirdo. Even when he's training Luke, like there's this elements that it's just a different representation than we see in the originals. It's like, did this like long tenure in isolation just send him into like becoming I don't know, just like he has dementia. It's just, yeah, and like he sees R2 and he's banging on R2 with the stick. It's like, dude, R2. Or maybe, because we never actually see him with R2 in the original. Or like in the prequel trilogy, I mean. But like, you would think he would kind of know who R2 is, because Anakin Skywalker takes him everywhere.
Yeah, like maybe, and there very well could have been some interactions between Yoda and R2 in the Clone Wars. I can't remember
Oh yeah,
that
right.
vividly. Clone Wars TV show. But I always thought that was just a test. He's just trying to get Luke so pissed off so that
Yeah,
he can then
okay.
reveal to Luke to say, "You just showed it yourself, bud. You're not ready. You just got pissed off at an old man who said he will help you." Like, and you just don't have the patience for it.
It's very true. That's
You're
very true.
very, very impulsive. You're very, very combative. You're very, very intolerant, which are not the traits of the Jedi. As
Because he later does, have like the classic "do or do not, there is no try, that is why you fail" stuff. So, it's very like
everything's a lesson.
profound.
Yeah,
It's very profound and deep and calm, and I appreciate it. And he's very like, it's more consistent in Return of the Jedi of how he was in the prequel when he's like on his deathbed, where he's just more serious. So
more stoic.
I agree with you. It probably is a test. I just sort of
For sure. Yeah.
find it a very different presentation. And I mean, even that, like, there's just a lot of stuff in the original trilogy overall that it's interesting. It's like, clearly, I mean, it's hard, right? Like 77, 80, and 83, like these movies come out.
Yeah.
And then even if George Lucas has an idea of down the road, I'm saving some stuff to do this prequel later on when maybe the technology is more there to show sort of the Jedi at more strength. It's just interesting, some of the like misconnections they make. Like, does Yoda know R2? He doesn't really pretend that he knows R2, but he should know R2. He also makes a statement, and I'll wait for kind of like your response to this, but like he also makes a statement to Luke, I think it's in Return of the Jedi, where he's the Force ghost and Yoda has just passed away, and then he starts talking about how, when I met your father, he was already a great pilot. He was strong with the Force. I took it upon myself to train him. It's like, dude, I love Obi-Wan. As I said last week, love him. But like, dude, you didn't do it. Qui-Gon essentially forced you to. He guilted you, dying with a hole in his chest, to take this kid on as a Padawan when you thought he was too old and you didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
So like, it just, I don't know. There's just some stuff. It's like, it's the way they shifted it in the prequels didn't really fit to me with like the sentiment of the originals, like what they were trying to get at in the originals.
There's a few. Well, like again with R2D2, why doesn't Obi-Wan know that who R2D2 is? It's like, I don't remember owning a droid. Like, dude, you commanded R2 on so many of those clone missions. Blah blah blah. I mean, mind you, perhaps it was the mindset of general public then to never really get too attached to a droid. Perhaps it's just like they're another piece of hardware. It's just like, you're just naming a tool, and you may just like forget the name of the tool after 19, 20 years, whatever, 19 years between them. But you'd think there'd be like,
think of this. Okay, so Mandalorian, there's that whole theory out that R2 saves Grogu, as we talked about last week, because of the way he leans over and reacts when he sees Grogu, right?
Right.
Like, would R2 not look at Obi-Wan and be like, "Oh shit!
Yeah, he was
It's
hiding.
you!
I know
Papa!
I know you from work.
I know you from work. You were my dad's best friend before he tried to kill you, and you chopped off all his limbs." Like,
there's
like,
some of those that are, they're like, you just got to give it to him.
Or does R2 have like this secret like mood disorder where he just gets like super offended, so he just pretend like he doesn't know him? It's like,
partial
fuck
memory,
you, man.
Partial memory wipe, maybe. I'm reaching fully, trying to justify, and of course trying to follow Obi-Wan's own instruction is to be like, so what I told you was true from a certain point of view, and just like, thank you. But like, some of it was definitely kind of shoehorning some of those lines together, whereas just like amazing pilot, that's what justified the pod race, in my opinion.
Well, he did fly in that battle.
He flew in the battle. You're right.
From Naboo.
But he'd already met him.
He took off from the hangar Naboo.
Yeah, that's true.
What's that?
So, I said, but he'd already met him at that point. But like, even still though, like that's splitting hairs as far as details of that goes. But so it's we're just gonna have to give it to him, give him benefit of the doubt. But speaking of certain point of view, something that has really helped my appreciation of A New Hope, and as I read it now, Empire Strikes Back, there's a couple of books that coincide with the 40th anniversary of the original trilogy releases, and those are called A Certain Point of View. The first one came out in 2017, where it was 40 short stories to correspond with 40 years, and they're all from the point of view of different characters in the background of these movies. So the first book is obviously about A New Hope, and it starts at the beginning. So it starts with Ramus Antilles, something. So like the captain, and this had just come out after Rogue One, so it corresponds with a lot of the information that's in Rogue One as well. So it's just like that Battle of Scarif kind of thing. It's got a lot of that in there, and it shows like what his journey was like getting to the point where he's getting choked out by Vader. But it's just like point of view of characters like that. There's like a couple of people, a ton of people in the cantina. There is, Red One, something from his point of view. And it just kind of all lines up nicely. It's just like a fun little, cool kind of thing. Like, I know that character. I remember that person. And I'm just currently working through I just got it over the Christmas holidays, A Certain Point of View from the 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back, where I'm only about halfway through. They've just got to the rendezvous point as far as where the story is progressing based on all these short stories that I'm reading. But there's stuff like point of view of the Wampa that gets Luke, point of view of a Tauntaun, point of view of people who helped carve out Echo Base, point of view of like, I was telling you right before this, Andy, where that scene where Han is saying to Leia, like, oh, you couldn't leave me without giving me a goodbye kiss? Huh? And then they back apart from each other, and someone goes between them, and he goes, huh? Come on. And so it shows like that character has this huge backstory, and he's like, it says exactly what he's doing. He's like, these two bickering again. I can't believe like they're still going at it. So obviously trying to hide emotion and feelings from each other. There's this whole pool that he talks about where people are betting on when she tells him to, kick rocks and F off from the Republic or the rebellion kind of thing. But it's just fun little side dishes to the beautiful main that is the movie of Empire Strikes Back, and A New Hope as well, from that matter. But very, very fun. It's helped me kind of appreciate a more whole movie as well. Now, here's the point of contention that I have with it. It was, I don't have the exact quote, but I remember looking it up back when, from like the main publisher, main producer, when they were asked, are these stories canon? Now, a couple of the stories don't really line up in A New Hope in the Greedo and Han scene, where, of course, there's always jokes about who shot first, ha ha ha. But it's just like a couple things, like there's like 10 minutes difference between some of the characters' accounts of how that story went. So like just little things that don't really sync up totally synonymously. And you're getting 40 authors together. They're gonna have different points of view. The original publisher was asked, is this canon? And they said some of them are, most of them are, but we won't tell you which ones are.
Right.
And it's just kind of like one of those, like, you can't necessarily take it as gospel, especially in this world of all these new bits of media coming out, all these new stories and new fillers, like with the Mandalorian, and that's going to start taking up some canon space. So is it going to push out some of this other stuff that's starting to move around? But it's just a very, very fun side dish, highly recommended. And one of the best parts is these stories, all of the authors donated their all of their profits and proceeds to a charity. Which charity is it? I don't have that information. I apologize, but it's all like in the name of, I think it's just like a sick kids kind of foundation, or like something to do with Star Wars and helping sick kids kind of thing. So it's a nice little present, or even a purchase for yourself for the Star Wars fan in your life. So highly recommended. It's really, really helped. Very good.
Yeah, I mean, I know I said to you before, I don't know if I said it like while we've been recording tonight, but for me, like the original trilogy is, because when we were born, so as I said, swinging one nut to the other, like for me, the historical or the trilogy as a historical sort of reference or historical document, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Where the prequel, even though it's after the prequels, the prequel and the sequel are like more current in my head because I've lived those. Or like those are like our lived experience in the time that I've been alive. You know, obviously greatly enjoy the originals, and like I said, Empire Strikes Back is now, you know, and still remains my favorite movie of all the Star Wars movies. So, I'm grateful for that. It's really actually interesting. We'll talk about it later podcast, but like in terms of like ranking my movies, for the longest time, I always had Revenge of the Sith, like number 3 after Return of the Jedi.
Right.
And then I think I had like Force Awakens in there at like number 4. But the more I like look at it, the more I watch the new movies, the more I watch the originals, Rogue One has very subtly,
Oh man,
like rock like rose up my ranks. Just in terms of like how well done that movie actually was, in my opinion.
oh for sure.
And I think what tied that movie all together was the like if that had a little bit more Star Wars like lightsaber Sith Jedi stuff in it, it would have been great. And the reason I'm talking about Rogue One because we can talk about it more later on, but I'm kind of bringing it up because it kind of leads us right into A New Hope.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I'm kind of bringing it up now. But like the whole ending Vader scene obviously made that movie.
Yeah, that was shot like
that
within a matter of weeks, like 6 to 8 weeks. Or
I know it
something
was
like
it was a later ad. Yeah, like I'm a little offended that they didn't use Hayden Christensen for the coming out of the Vader bath in it. Like I thought that was just sort of like a snub. However, it is what it is. He's going to come back for Obi-Wan series, but just that whole lightsaber igniting and the slaughter.
It
in
showed
the
what
thing. It's just like
why Darth Vader was so feared.
Finally, Vader. And like I said it last week in the episode 1, like I'm just so hoping with this Obi-Wan series, we just get some real solid Vader darkness.
Yes,
and just to see Vader in his prime have a lightsaber battle, like.
Well, I'm sure you've seen it. That redo of the, and we can talk about this because it's part of the original trilogy. You know, lightsabers were cool, but we were kind of introduced as very much like a samurai western kind of style between Obi-Wan and Vader. It was very like it was like a true sword fight, as if like you were to actually have a sword fight kind of thing, not like the flipping of the Jedi and using the Force and all of that stuff. There's a re-edit, and I will perhaps post a link or maybe even try and repost it once we finally get a YouTube page. But there's someone re-edited that scene to modernize. So they use like a deep fake onto a new Obi-Wan, onto their face. Vader goes stomping down the hall and force whips his lightsaber into his hand. And it is a much, much, much more, well, modern, but I was very, very gratified by it. Like a very, very satisfying first lightsaber battle between Obi-Wan. And it just showed Obi-Wan's age. It showed him getting tired. It showed that, like, you know, he's out of practice. It showed a lot, and it gave him like a true proper death, like a good warrior's death, and that he went down swinging, you know, despite the last scene of him putting up the lightsaber. But like he gave it his all to buy Luke, Han, and Leia and Chewie as much time as he could to escape. And like you could just kind of tell, like it almost seemed like he sensed in the Force that it was like they just got to the ship and like, okay, I can do this now. I'm done. My job's done. Like, boom, slice him down. So it, like YouTube, new Obi-Wan versus Vader fight scene. Look it up on YouTube, and like it'll blow whatever you got off. It's great.
Yeah. Even like the originals too, like when one of the guys at the table says, like, criticizes Vader for like having faith in like the old religion, like that old religion he references, and then Vader
Poggy.
Yeah, Poggy, that's it. And then he like Force chokes him, and then Tarkin has to say, "Lord Vader, release him." and he like releases him. I just thought like that was really cool. Like, and when you watch the prequels to like see the fall of the Jedi and how they essentially abolished, like it's just interesting because like the Emperor and Vader are Force strong, so they believe in the Force, the dark side of the Force. But it's essentially like with the wipeout of the Jedi and the wipeout of the Order and the Republic and all that, they've essentially like wiped from anyone's memory the belief
Yeah.
that this like art and this Force power even exists.
This religion, as he even calls it. He's just like, yeah, this hokey thing you got going on, we're not buying it, bud. Because, like you say, there's no mass concept. Like, of course, there's legends, but, you know, there's in our society, there's legends of dragons. There's legends of, you know, gods and legends of people with extraordinary powers that are just that, just legends. Now, mind you, it's a very, very quick turnover within 19, 20 years. But when you think about it, like you said, Coruscant was kind of a centrally localized place, and Jedi, there was like a couple thousand for sure. But when you think about, I think the population of Coruscant, and someone Wikipedia this and let me know, but I think it was like 3 trillion or something like that. Like massive amount of people. So when you take like a couple thousand, chances are of meeting a Jedi, that's like meeting royalty. Never mind people from other planets where, you know, Jedi would just be sent to like oversee an issue and then bug out again kind of thing and leave people to they weren't police officers. They just kind of kept galactic peace. They didn't really enforce on a person-to-person everyday schmo level kind of thing. So it's very, very likely that a lot of people had no idea of what the Force was. Like Han had no idea. Say hokey religions and ancient blasters or ancient weapons are no good for or aren't in comparison to a blast at your side, whatever he says. But just that alone, the main character doesn't know what the Force is. So very true, Andrew. Very true. Okay, well, you know what? I got a fun little fact for us here, just to end us off. Well, you know what? We didn't touch a whole lot on Return of the Jedi. Maybe we'll talk about that for a minute or two before we conclude here. Again, I love the story. I still do, despite it, you know, being a very, very close third for the trilogy itself. The speeder bike scene was one of my favorites as a kid. The Ewoks, I loved them. And for all the haters and people who are saying, you know, Ewoks are, how did this little furry creature destroy an entire empire kind of thing? I challenge you to play the game Star Wars Battlefront 2 and play Ewok Hunt. It's a game mode that they have where you are a stormtrooper and you try and survive at night a bunch of Ewoks hunting you in the forest. It is terrifying. They're just like ambushing you and taking you out of nowhere.
My dog looks like an Ewok.
Oh, that's probably why you got her. Got him.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Baby Chewbacca or an Ewok. That's what it looks like.
Adorable. But yes. And then like, yes, it was kind of similar. It's kind of very similar to the same vein of Force Awakens, where it was like very similar-ish concept to the first. You know, as far as the big boss goes, like the Death Star. Of course, it was bigger. It looked more imposing because it was under construction, so it had that kind of skeletal look to it. But it was still operational. You got to meet the Emperor. So it had some new elements in there that helped make it. And of course, the heist component at the very beginning with Jabba's palace. I have nothing but good things to say about Jedi, despite its, you know, perceived flaws by many, I'm sure. But I thought it was very, very fun and very satisfying end of the trilogy. Much better than what George Lucas, and who knows what the truth is behind this, but there was always a rumor saying that one of the endings he considered was having Luke take off Vader's helmet and say, "Now I'm Vader," and that's how it ended. But it was a satisfying ending for everybody.
Yeah, I was pretty sad. Like, I mean, it kind of speaks to Luke Skywalker's character arc that they try to get away from in The Last Jedi, obviously. Thank you, Rian Johnson. But I thought it was like true to the character to try to appeal to his goodness and then convert him. And I'm glad he kind of did it at the end. And yeah, he kind of went on. Like, I thought it was a fitting end.
It was a close call with you know, with Luke going to the dark side, but just him wailing on Vader like that and blasting his arm off with the lightsaber, and then him looking at his hand, being like, "I'm becoming you," kind of thing. So
pretty much.
And another fun little part when
more machine now than men.
One fun little Obi-Wan connection to that was, I'd never realized it till I saw it in a meme. Was when so right after Luke does the backflip and is on top of a balcony, Vader looks up at him and says, "Obi-Wan has taught you well," which I think now is like a callback to him having the high ground.
Oh, I have the high ground. That's awesome. I never picked up on that.
I wouldn't have either, but
That's very good.
God bless the internet and people with more time on their hands than I do, and I have a lot of time on my hands.
That is good.
But it was a very,
Does he say that to him though in Return of the... Does he say that to him in Return of the Jedi or Empire? He says that to him in Empire.
Oh shoot, maybe. I don't know.
I think he says it to him in Empire.
Was it Empire?
It's still good. It's still good.
When he's climbing up the ropes.
He's climbing out. He jumps out of the. Oh, what do you call it? Brain fart.
Out of the carbonite chamber.
The carbonite, yeah, the carbonite chamber. He jumps out of it before Vader turns it on, or as he's turning it on.
No, that's when he goes impressive / most impressive.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? That's a new component we'll have for next week as well. We'll catch our own mistakes after the episode, and then we'll correct them in the later episode. Hey, we encourage all of you to do that to us as well. If we've made any bed poopings, or poodoo, as our buddy Sabelbo would say, then please feel free to email us gmalderaan@gmail.com with any kind of corrections, tips. What do you want us to talk about? That kind of stuff. I have nothing else to say on the original trilogy.
We've said it before. We don't know everything about Star Wars. We enjoy it. I'm currently wearing a Star Wars t-shirt as we talk about this. I love it. And, but certainly if I've misstepped or I've said anything incorrectly or if I've got something mixed up, sometimes I get in the heat of the moment and, things just, come out a little quickly.
It's hard to think on the fly, as we know, but, yes,
Can I say one more fun fact though? Something that I read. I don't know if it's a fact. It's more of a, fun, maybe setting up later episode conversation. I read something today that Robert Downey Jr. has appealed or brought something up to Disney about wanting to appear in some kind of future Star Wars project. So I think that's worth taking a look at and discussing later on. Ooh. I personally think, given how close he is to Favreau, because of all the stuff they did together, that maybe we'll see him in one of these Favreau Filoni shows, like Rangers of the New Republic, Book of Boba Fett, maybe a future Mandalorian.
I wonder
what else are they doing?
I wonder if that could be like a Harrison Ford-esque kind of play where he says, "I'll do it, but you have to do Indiana Jones." So he could say something like, "I'll do another Iron Man, but you have to put me in a Star Wars." Maybe
that's the deal with Disney. Maybe we don't know that.
Deal with the devil.
Yeah, so we're diving a little bit of Marvel right now, which, maybe that's another podcast idea one day. But like, I love Robert Downey Jr. It would be hilarious to see Tony Stark in Star Wars.
Oh man, that'd be so good.
Like, literally just name him anything, but essentially he is Tony Stark.
Yeah.
It'd be amazing.
Having him and Samuel L. Jackson in the same room together, bantering back and forth. Oh my god! Like if Mace became this kind of like old senile Yoda style, like
yes,
that's not my way anymore. That kind of thing.
Can't you just picture like Samuel L. Jackson walking into a room, like Robert Downey Jr. is this character, like say he's in Rangers of the New Republic in a TV show. So you got Robert Downey Jr. He's like one of the leaders, we'll say, of like the New Republic. He's just sitting at this table, sort of like this boardroom, like war room kind of table.
Yeah.
And then Samuel L. Jackson, like Mace Windu just walks in, being like, "I'm back," and then Robert Downey just being like, "I thought you were dead. Aren't you dead? No, you're not dead." Like just like that I can't do it. Obviously, I'm not that good at impressions, but like that awesome like Tony Stark.
Didn't I see you get blown out a window?
Yeah. Where's the eye patch? No eye patch? Didn't he have an eye patch? He lost an eye. Like that kind of stuff.
I love it. Oh man, that'd be so good.
For a second, I thought you were Build-A-Bear. Like I love it's that quick stuff that he does. It would be amazing.
Yeah, he almost doesn't look at a script, or it feels like that anyways. But anyways, this isn't a Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. podcast. But anyways, that's good for today, I think. We've given the people plenty. Enough to tide us over for another week or two, perhaps. We got some great stuff coming up. We've confirmed with an interview with a very, very interesting fellow, guy I've met before. Absolutely love it. That's all I'll tease you with right now. That's going to be coming in a couple of weeks' time. We're interviewing him in, I think, 2 weeks from today that we're recording right now. So don't expect that episode for a little while, but it is someone who has worked directly on set in the first trilogy. That is all I will tell you for now. Yeah.
So yeah, thanks again for hanging out with us today. If you haven't already, please punch that subscribe button. We'd greatly appreciate it. And give us a rating.
Punch it. Yeah, you can find us on you can find us on Instagram at Good Morning
Do it now.
Good Morning Alderaan. Sorry, that's at Good Morning Alderaan.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, that was speaking of bad dialogue. That one. Yeah.
Yeah. When they're fighting Count Dooku, and he's sitting in the chair. Yeah.
You love Revenge of the Sith. Oh my god, I can't wait to talk about that.
I do. I do love Revenge of the Sith.
That could be its own episode. But anyways, let me get through this. Find us on Instagram at Good Morning Alderaan. And if you have any questions or things that you think we need to correct, please feel free to call us out. gmalderaan@gmail.com. On behalf of my co-host and I just want to say again, thanks for listening. You know what? I'll pause right there. How about we end like this right before we say our last line? I want to give you a fun fact because I have a fact right here that I just found that I forgot to tell you about. I'd like to end episodes with a fun fact. And then we can say our sign out line. What do you think?
Okay.
We're just discovering all sorts of new stuff in this episode. We got okay, just to recap, we got Watto as our nasty boy safe word.
Yeah.
And then we now have maybe this thing of like a fun fact at the end, and then we'll get into our sign out line.
Okay.
I like it. Do you know what Yoda's original name was?
Oh, I feel like seen this or heard this one time. But I can't remember, and it's pissing me off.
So you're gonna let me get through all of this. Yoda's original name was Buffy. In later drafts,
the Vampire Slayer?
Could you imagine his like look of shock and surprise? Like, you know, when he first discovers, like, thinks that he's Yoda, with him going, Yoda? If him just looking at him going, Buffy? You couldn't say that with a straight face. Buffy?
You should have like a fluffy tail or something. Like fluffy tail. Buffy.
So his original name was Buffy. In later drafts, it was changed to Yoda, but he had the full name, Minch Yoda. Minch. You're Minch. Eventually, it was shortened to just Yoda.
You're a Minch. You're a Minch, Yoda. You're a Minch.
I like that. That could be a good adjective. All right, so on behalf of my co-host,
that should be our new safe word, Minch.
Yes. Okay, we're changing that. We're changing it all. It's not Miwato anymore. Hopefully, you've listened this long. Our safe word is Minch.
Can't you hear Mace Windu and the Jedi Council fucking Yoda going on some soapbox tangent, and you hear Mace Windu, shut the fuck up, you fucking Minch.
Don't come back to that. You can't come back when your name is Minch. Okay. That's good. On behalf of my co-host, Andy, and I just want to say again, thanks for listening, and hey, always be a Jedi in the streets.
And a Sith in the sheets.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.